Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Brooks. It's been some time since I have had a chance to talk to you, but there's some things happening that I really want to share with you. Now, you can see by the title of this talk, Aquaponics Food Insecurity, a food shortage may be coming, and our plan for what we plan to do, what we will do as far as my family is concerned. And maybe I can encourage you to do some things also. And for more than just our family, but how can we help our communities? So let's move forward. Now, this is going to be a tip of the iceberg talk because there's so much to this. And in 30 minutes, which I have allotted for this talk, I can only talk about so much. But I'm going to give you additional resources that will be tied to the video that you can look up to learn more about aquaponics and also what is happening that may cause this food shortage once again. Now, I've been around for an awful long time working in aspects of aquaculture and plant production. This is a picture of me as University of Arizona faculty back in 1990, where we were growing catfish in the canals and cotton fields next to them that received the nutrients. Back then, we called it integrated aquaculture, agriculture. Today, we call it aquaponics. But integrated aquaculture and agriculture has been around for a long time. But the current name is just an iteration of what's been done for perhaps 5,000 years now. So here's what I'm talking about. This is from the Office of Management and Budget, I believe, and I'm going to link this paper in at the bottom of the video. It says clearly there is ample data showing the immediate dangers to the American food supply. Now, this came out a few days ago. Again, I'm going to link the article for you to read so you can get the entire context of this. But there's nothing else that the document says that this is coming. So I'm going to take them as their word for it because during the pandemic, I did not take them for their word and had to spend some time catching up. Also, along with that, because according to this, the government shut down. People are not going to be receiving their SNAP benefits. I hope this is not true, but if it is, people are not going to be receiving their SNAP benefits in November. It's October right now, 2025. They're not going to be receiving their SNAP benefits as of November 2025. And this right here is what happened in November 2020. Empty shelves, high prices. These cars here are waiting for a turkey because turkeys were not available. Couldn't buy them. From a local church, not far from my home, at South Mountain, you see in the background in Phoenix, Arizona. So what can I personally do? Our family has always been involved, and we are going to be working within our knowledge basis using aquaponics and a few other skills to ensure that we provide enough food. And not only enough food for us, but maybe we can help our neighbors as well. Now, I recently wrote an article about this. This is in the magazine of the World Aquaculture Society for September 2025. Now, I want you to hold on to this term, a smallholder. We'll get into that. But when we first started thinking about how or what can we grow in our backyards, in our backyard, to help to support our family, and if we can grow more to support others. Now, this is from the USDA, and it shows that Americans eat about 2,000 pounds of food per person over a year's time period. Interesting enough, it seems that of that 2,000 pounds, of which a lot of that is sugar, and I don't know, I really want to count that, but let's say the 2,000 pounds, 1,996 pounds and 96 pounds, 0.3 pounds. About 35% we can actually grow in our backyard if we so choose. If you look at this graph, or this image, we can grow vegetables. Now it shows a pepper as a vegetable. Biologically speaking, a pepper is a fruit, but as far as the USDA counts it, peppers, tomatoes, those are all vegetables. So we can grow vegetables in our backyard. We can grow fruit in our backyard. It shows a grapefruit here, and therefore, if you have a tree, a fruit-bearing tree, sometime during the year, that tree is just going to dump food on you. And that is an important part of your total balance, whether you juice it or whatever else, because you don't just look at these things for there's a pepper, I can make a taco. No, you have to look at it as to how do I make this last? And we'll talk about that more later. We can grow fish in our backyards. Now, Americans are not great fish eaters, regrettably, at 16.1 pounds per year, but we can grow fish in our backyard. We can grow chickens in our backyards. Now, this is talking about urban agriculture. Let me get back to that. I didn't mention that earlier. This is talking about urban agriculture, growing food in a city. And in many cities that have the right temperatures and such, you still have to deal with city regulations. You have to understand that your neighbor might not want anything to do with a farm. Your neighbor might not want to hear a rooster crowing all night long. But you are in a huge area of compromise when you live in a city. And some cities do not allow backyard farms. The cities that do, however, there are rules and regulations that control them. For example, for chickens in my area, you have to be a certain distance away from your neighbor. That's the compromise. If you can be that distance from your neighbor, you can have your chickens. Although you can't have roosters legally because they're too noisy. If you are not that far, you can't. Conversely, if your chickens are the required distance away from your neighbor, even though he or she may not ever want to see a chicken, they can't say anything about yours. These are the compromises that you live with living in a city. In my particular city, which is Phoenix, Arizona, does allow backyard farming if you can meet those regulations. Now, you can also grow, now you can't grow cattle. I can't grow cattle. I can't process cattle. It'll be hard to get cheese and such, but eggs coming from chickens, I can get eggs all day long. So when you work it out, it comes out to about 35% of that 2,000 pounds of food that if you had the room, you could actually grow in your backyard, meaning fish, chickens, vegetables, and fruit. You can do corn too, but corn is far more difficult because it has very strict growing requirements in order to get the cobs to seed out. But if you have that skill, it's a skill. All of this requires skill to do. You can grow corn just as well. So let's move on. As we decided how are we going to do this, we were looking for a model. What has somebody else done that we can learn from? And we had to go all the way back to World War II, with the victory gardens. Now, this is a small victory garden, 15 by 25 feet. And it could grow about 1/2 pound of food per year for every square foot. So that's somewhere around 180 to 200 pounds of food this victory garden could grow. And this was suggested and promoted by the government back in 1945. You remember this was during World War II. Also, they did it during World War I. In World War I, they called them war gardens, but then in World War II, possibly because of the influence of Dr. George Washington Carver's work, they called them victory gardens because he wrote about the victory of gardening. But you can see they had a wide variety of things that they could produce: beans, broccoli, cabbages, carrots. And you can stop the film, look at everything that they could grow there. So in that, my expertise is in aquaculture, aquaponics. How could we do that using that technology? Now, this brings us back to that smallholder farm I mentioned. The victory gardens were done in World War II. That was 80 years ago. And there was basically no updates as far as what we could really do with this method of growing food between now and then. However, I learned during the writing of this article that about 30% of the food in the world comes from a business model almost identical to the victory gardens. It's called smallholders. You can look it up. There's terminology, throw it in your AI and you can look it up. Though the numbers as to how much food in the world are variable from the sources you get, is between 35% and 25%. That's a lot of food from people's backyards. And because of that, there is an enormous amount of data that has been compiled between then and now. The strange thing about it is that there are very few smallholder farms in the United States. And I'm going to be writing about that very soon because I have become an advocate of this concept because it can grow a lot of food. And the business model gives us something that we need to work with to make urban farming more practical in the United States. And we'll be with that in just a few minutes. So we work in aquaponics and we have been good at doing it. It does help that I have the agricultural background, but so does my wife as far as doing lettuce. But like the victory gardens, we just didn't want to do the traditional aquaponic thing of lettuce and tilapia. No, that was not sufficient. We want to grow everything. And so we worked it out and we developed a technology that would allow us to grow basils and honeydews and cantaloupes and watermelons, everything almost that a classical victory garden in the soil as well. And that is not only tilapia, as you see on the right, but also catfish on the left. Now, catfish take a little skill. They are a little bit disease prone, but once you get that skill down, you can grow some amazing catfish, as you can see it right here. In our area, tilapia were more of a summer crop at one time, but the climate is changing whether we like it or not. And we have now seen years where tilapia could survive through the entire 365-day growth opportunity. But it's still off and on. Some years it'll work, some years it doesn't. But catfish are consistently available to grow 365 days a year. The challenge, however, is getting the catfish to grow, particularly when you're in a state like Arizona that's nowhere near the traditional catfish areas. What kind of value are we going to get from this? Okay, there's more to growing food in your backyard than simply I can grow food, because you don't want to grow a $10 tomato. $10 tomatoes are not good ideas. They really don't help you. You might as well go to the grocery store, but that's the thought you got to look at. Now, this is also linked below. This is the business model canvas. It gives you a guide and how do you look at your backyard as part providing not only food value, which is enormous, but also economic value. Now, there's something really important that people really haven't thought of much, and it comes from the smallholder idea, and that is, can we grow food in our backyards for less than what it costs to buy from the grocery store? Now, this is particularly important, of course, as the grocery stores are empty shelves and high prices. Empty shelves and high prices. It actually helps us do these numbers. Normally, an aquaponic business model looks like this. You have a farm, you have a transportation, and you have to get your food to the market and then to the plate. Therefore, all of your costs have to be managed so that at the end of the day, you've made a little bit of money. That's hard to do on a small backyard scale. Often people are given very high prices to develop a farm big enough to do that. We need a business model like this, where we have our farm and it goes directly to the plate. And excess food from the farm would therefore go to our neighbors or family, however we wanted to manage that. My father had a backyard farm. He used to grow okra, and he grew a lot of okra. He was very good at growing okra, and the neighbors still think about him and with fondness, because they would lock their doors saying, "Here come Reverend Brooks with that basket of okra," because he was really, really good with it. But this paper, I always thought that this was possible, but this paper that is linked below as well confirms that with a classic aquaponic setup, you can actually grow food at a low enough cost so that it's less than the cost of buying the exact same food from the grocery store. Therefore, if you are growing what you eat normally and you replace it with food from your backyard, if your lettuce is costing you $1 a pound and it's costing you $3 a pound in the grocery stores. Now, we all know one of our major challenges here in the U.S. is that food costs are skyrocketing. That's the term I've heard over and over again. That means that if the differential between that $1 a pound is costing you to grow it versus the $3 a pound you're paying in the grocery store, you pocket that. As Benjamin Franklin, I believe, said, a penny saved is a penny earned. Now, you have to understand that accounting, because if you don't understand that accounting, you'll never see that accounting. But if you understand the accounting, then you can actually put that money back in your pocket. Now, well, let's move on to the next slide. But this is a classic aquaponic system. Here is an additional benefit that will help us use this process. Again, this is your competition. Normally, when you grow food in your backyard, you're trying to compete with the farmer, maybe in Yuma, as far as your costs and your prices at the farmer's market. It's really hard to do. It takes a big farm, costs a lot of money to get it set up. But if we switch in our economic model from the farmer, big farmer being our competition as far as food costs, to the supermarket as the source of food. Again, if you can grow your food for less than it costs for you to buy the exact same food in your supermarket, you win. I threw this in here for a reason. These are people just like you and I. A few years ago, I had the pleasure of being the lead scientist on a grant where we were trying to get more people into aquaculture. We went from San Juan, Puerto Rico, Chicago, Los Angeles, and many points in between. Rooms full of people. And out of these hundreds of people that we talked to, many of them who, yes, at the end of the meeting, I want to do this. How much does it cost me? It was that last issue. Because we didn't have that new business model. We weren't aware of the smallholder going on, because the smallholder uses family resources, family labor. You're not paying your labor, okay, but as you do in backyards. We didn't know about that. Therefore, the answers that were given to these good people, only one of them out of the hundreds that we talked to actually built a fish farm. Now we have new numbers, new technologies, and new opportunities that were, and we brought it down from whatever I think someone said, between 100,000 and 300,000 or whatever. We've brought it down to around 2,000 in a DIY that gives a lot more opportunity to a lot more people. There's still people who can't do that, but more people have the opportunity to work with it than it did in the past. So what we did, as far as our aquaponics system, we chose this. These are all over, Phoenix is where I am. These are all over Phoenix, usually in people's backyards and full of green water, just like this one. And we did a little bit of the disruptive innovation thing, and we were able to turn them into viable, productive, highly productive aquaponic systems, growing fish and all of these different kinds of plants. Here, this is a summer shot that shows cucumbers, and it shows okra, and it shows okra, and it shows various melons and squashes. It grew a whole lot of food for us, and to give the additional opportunities for the neighbors, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful for everyone. But we found that the circular systems were not, the circular systems were not space efficient. So we went to use these rectangular ones, and they worked out very well, allowed us to put a hoop house over it, and shade screen. Oh yeah, it says a 40% shade screen. We had to go to a 70% shade screen because of some climate change issues we had here in Phoenix during the summer. It got really, 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 really hot. And so we didn't use the higher shade screen, just burned everything up. Fish were fine, but we did have some problems with our catfish that we're using. Water can get too hot for them, and that causes catfish cannibalism. And that's another skill thing you have to work out. And this is what they looked like when they were in full production. And you can see here melons and cucumbers and Armenians and peppers, and there's an entire list of the kinds of plants that we were growing. This is part one of the list, and the next slide is part two of the list. Again, you can stop the video so that you can read all of these. They're also, again, listed in one of the papers that is linked below. And they're small. Okay, nice thing about aquaponics, whether it's a classic system or a small system, these backyard systems for family and size, they're comparatively small. This one was 100 square feet when you include the foundation. And this is a typical Phoenix backyard in an urban area. So you see that it is not much space, while this system you see here provided the same amount of food as if you were to use the entire larger square and turn that into a backyard farm, leaving you a lot more room to enjoy your backyard for other purposes as well. But if you are going to do this, it's seasonal. You can't leave a head of broccoli in the system because broccoli doesn't grow like that. You have to harvest it or else it becomes inedible. It turns all the flowers. And so there are additional skills you have to learn in order to make this concept work. to grow food year round. And that is, you have to learn how to preserve your food, whether it's in a refrigerator or a freezer or in a backyard. We call this was during COVID. We call this our COVID room. My wife learned how to can, and she was growing she was putting everything that she possibly could into cans, asparagus, wherever we were growing, if it could be bottled or canned, she bottled or canned it. Eggs, we had chickens outside. Oh, by the way, the chickens, there are many foods that like lettuces and such. Some of the leaves are inedible for us. Those go to the chickens, and the chickens love them. Other things they can't eat the leaves, like they can't eat cucumber leaves or melon leaves, but they can eat greens. If you were growing collard greens or broccoli, they can eat those leaves. And also, when you have those brassicas, not only the broccoli florets are edible, the leaves are edible as well. That's because they're basically the same species of plant that over the decades people have done selective breeding so for various different characteristics. I believe the species is Brassica oscillaria. You can look that up, and I'll also leave that linked below. So there are many different things that you can do to maximize the availability of food that you're able to grow in your backyard. Now, what happens next? What happens when the food shortage is over? The food shortage will be over one day. What happens then? In your backyard small aquaponic system, you need a few fish, you need some good seeds, comparatively easy to source, even though the fish can be challenging to source, unless you're talking about ornamentals like koi and such, and there's not much call to eat them, even though they are edible. What do you want to do if you want to continue your farming with aquaponics, and if you want to scale it to something bigger? There is modular. You can add more of them or build more. To do that, you need to have sources, a value chain. You need to have an ecosystem around you, such as what you see right here. In your community, you can literally develop each one of these squares as an individual business. Now, some things you can do internally, like you can, if you have tilapia, you can breed your own tilapia, you can nurse your own tilapia, you can grow out your own tilapia. But all of these things have the opportunity to be individual businesses. Raw materials, feed supply, equipment supply, brood stock, value adding those. The basic processing is really, really important if you're going to be growing fish. So basic processing is turning catfish into catfish fillets, and then value adding is turning catfish fillets into catfish nuggets with breading on them. Wholesale, all of these things could be developed within a community that surrounds you, and creating more jobs and the opportunity for more, creating more jobs and the opportunity to, create an industry where there was not an industry before. So I want to invite you to, this is also linked below, come to our Aquaponics channel. Again, this is the tip of the iceberg, but here you will see, I don't know how many videos I have here, a lot of videos here, that each one of them talks about various aspects of what we just discussed now. And so you can have a lot more details. There's also several complete lectures that I have given on this subject to various universities, and also to various societies that can provide you additional information. And then, of course, I would invite you to contact me if you have any more questions. So thank you very much, and take care and be well.